In today's video, we're showing you some of the craziest discoveries found on the beach, like these litters that never made it home and this brain-like blob that kids poke at the beach. Velella. Every couple of weeks, shores across America get littered with glass-like sea creatures known as the Velella, or the by-the-wind sailors. They have flat, transparent floats and a triangular sail that allows the wind to guide them through the open waters, leading them to get stuck on the beach when the gust is strong. Don't worry though, they're not dangerous to us humans. Though often assumed to be jellyfish, Velellas are not all that closely related to them. Cynindrians have two body forms, the classic jellyfish body and the polyp's body that sea anemones have. The Velella is a colony of specialized individual polyps that uses the water's surface as its substrate. According to experts, the most of these things that can zap dead are tiny fish larvae, which they eat in turn. Many are worried that these beach visits will become more common due to climate change. After all, it can harm tourism, fisheries, aquaculture, and even power plants, as jellies habitually clog up nuclear reactor cooling pipes. However, this is not a universal trend. While jellies may appear more on our beaches, they aren't about to wreck our economy, especially not their Velella cousins. Pufferfish Skeleton. So, this is what a pufferfish skeleton looks like. It was found at Wellington Beach, New Zealand, and who else thought their spines were just something they could replace as they age? I figured they were similar to shark teeth in that they come off constantly and can be replaced, but they're actually a part of their skeleton, especially given how they blow when threatened. But it does make sense. If there was something removable, they wouldn't survive as long as they do, as predators would likely attack it until it lost more of its spikes. Something else that people may find surprising is that these spines are just modified scales. Research shows that they're composed of nanocrystalline hydroxypatite protein and water, the same materials found in scales. And just like them, these spines originate during the development of the mesoderm layer of skin. Dr. Brian Sidlauskas, associate professor and curator of fishes at Oregon State University, noted that this is because the fish evolved from a group that all possess cetinoid scales, which can be identified by the small teeth along their edges. Granted, inflation likely evolved before its spikiness, which is kind of funny to think of it just being a little floating ball in the ocean. Severed shark head. Well, this is both surprising and not really. I thought I'd only come across something like this while playing Raft with friends, but real life had a surprise in store. A perfectly preserved severed shark head was discovered on a beach at Farewell Spit, New Zealand. Locals and even sea life specialists were stumped and had no idea how something like this managed to find its way onto the beach. More importantly, they have no clue where the remainder of its body lies. See, it's not uncommon for sharks to get stranded on the sand while out hunting for prey. It's happened quite a few times, and usually a couple of beachgoers rescue it and throw it back to the sea. This one, though? Nobody knows what happened to it. Perhaps an orcapod hunted it down. They do eat sharks after all, and orcas are sadistic little muckers, aren't they? Whatever the case, I do feel bad for this poor little shark. Conjoined Dolphins. Dolphins are one of the most beloved sea creatures out there. They're intelligent, have been reported to help save people from sharks and drowning, and have the cutest laughs I've ever heard from a marine mammal. Granted, they're still terrifying, though. Most people would come running to help save them when they're stranded ashore or in trouble for those reasons alone, though. But how would you react if this is the dolphin you found at your local beach? On a beach in Izmir, Turkey, tourists found the body of a two-headed dolphin, which was later discovered to be 12 months old at the time of its passing due to its barely meter length. According to locals, it must have washed up to shore the night before its discovery due to the terrible storm. Though dolphins appearing on beaches may be familiar, finding a conjoined one is a different and slightly creepier story. Probably would have freaked out a little had I seen this in person. That being said, though, it is interesting to know that this phenomenon also happens to sea creatures, and here I thought it was a thing that mostly happened to humans or even snakes. Dinosaur Femur. We've heard of animals and their carcasses washing ashore. We've even heard of millennia-old megalodon teeth being found on beaches. But what none of us ever expected to hear is a dinosaur femur somehow finding its way onto Washington Beach. A fragmented femur bone that was hidden underwater for millions of years became the first tangible piece of evidence that dinosaurs once roamed the state of Washington. After examining the massive bone structure, scientists identified the femur as belonging to a theropod. Now, theropods are a group of obligate biped flesh-eating dinosaurs. That's to say that their hind legs were used for travel and support, with their short arms and mobile hands were being used for grabbing and tearing at prey. And despite their name, they have feet that resemble those of birds. Popular theropods include the velociraptors and the well-known and iconic T-Rex. While scientists have yet to boil down the specific species of dinosaur the bone belonged to, they were able to date the femur to be about 80 million years old. This marked it as a pretty big discovery and feat in their research for prehistoric life. Harley Davidson. All my motorcycle-loving friends and family have uttered the brand name Harley Davidson for as long as I remember. For barbecues, they go on about how one day they'd have enough saved to purchase one as their daily commute. Shame really. If they lived or visited Canada in 2012, one of them could have actually had their dream come true for free. On the coast of British Columbia, Canada, a rusty Harley Davidson motorbike washed up to shore. It's believed that this bike was slipped into the Pacific Ocean by the 2012 Japanese tsunami. Based on its plate number, motorists believe the bike originated from Miyagi, northern Japan, before it was swept away. Considering all the devastation and debris that entered the waters because of that tsunami, the fact that the Harley Davidson completed its trip to Canada in one piece is nothing short of a miracle. Best part of this story is that the person who discovered it searched for the bike's owner. Why? Well, because he wanted to be a good Samaritan and return it. No wonder Canadians are said to be extremely nice. World War II love letters. This entry can break your heart. Not mine though, it's cold and dead. At countless beaches in Europe, many people have stumbled upon love letters dated from World War II, but it's not like what you think. Most of us assume that these messages come from soldiers' spouses and families waiting for them back home. I mean, after all, the waiting game back then was intense. You never knew what happened to your loved ones unless they heard back from them. But the letters the beachgoers mentioned above found, these were actually from the soldiers themselves, trying to reach out to their homes and provide proof of life as they risked their lives for their countries. Many letters were bound for the US, while some were supposed to go to other countries on the same continent. But these messages never arrived at their destinations. We wouldn't have learned of them otherwise. Likely due to the storms out at sea, and honestly, probably because of the warfare going on as well, these post containers were lost. We can only hope that these soldiers are later reunited with their families, alive and well. Rubber ducks. Bet only a few people would ever imagine finding this at the beach. And those few people? Probably kids. Prepare yourselves though, parents, for the attack of the rubber ducks and the children trying to grab one later on. That's right, many of them are being washed ashore these days, and no, these guys weren't rejected samples from toy factories. They came from a lost shipping container. Yeah, that might be a bit confusing, so let me explain. 30 years ago, a shipping container carrying 28,000 rubber ducks was lost at sea. I don't know what happened next. Either this container fell to the ocean floor and the fleet of rubber duckies wanting home somehow busted it open, or the crate itself wasn't really locked, spilling all these ducks in the sea upon falling. Well, whatever the case, from their origins in Hong Kong, these ducks have traveled to countries all over the world, from Canada to America to even Ecuador, Colombia, England, and France as well. So if you're on the beach and find one staring at you from the shore, maybe take it on home. But a long and hard battle to be where it is. Tjipetir Blocks. For the past few years, a mystery has been plaguing European beaches. Rubber-like slabs have been washing ashore with the word Tjipetir, which I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing. Editor, please put that word on the screen. Thank you, I appreciate you, sweetie. Speculations are that it was part of the Titanic's cargo, but is this true? Not really. British beachcomber Tracy Williams uncovered the truth after finding her first block in 2012. The rumor arose because a French newspaper reported that the Titanic had been carrying gutta percha, the material the slabs are made of. However, in 2013, Williams had a breakthrough when two people contacted her. Both directed her to look into one wreck, which according to them was the actual source of the slabs. Maybe these unnamed contributors were part of a salvage company that had to recover the cargo because they were right. The Titanic wasn't the wreck to spread the Tjipetir slabs around. It was the Japanese liner, the Miyazaki Maru, which sunk during World War I. It was destroyed 150 miles west of the Isles of Sicily due to an attack from a German sub. The UK government's receiver of the wreck, Alison Kentuck, also believes the blocks came from the ship, which is pretty cool. Mystery solved. Giant squid. On April 30th this year, beachgoers in Conjoined, South Africa encountered something rare, a giant squid carcass on the sand at Long Beach. According to Cape Town resident and volunteer and Explore founder Alison Paulus, the squid's body was 7.2 feet alone, but the tentacles and arms were included and it would have measured 11.5 feet tall. Why this is rare is because giant squids are incredibly elusive. They live at ocean depths between 1,000 to 3,000 feet and barely rise to the surface. For centuries, scientists only knew about them from studying their beached carcasses, such as this one, or the remains found in the bellies of whales. It's assumed that this squid, in particular, was beached after sustaining injuries which later took its life. Experts believe the long gash above its tentacles was from a boat propeller, likely from a commercial boat or a fishing vessel. This squid was only 2 years old when she died, about halfway through its lifespan. Sadly, the body did not reach the museum as local anglers had already salvaged parts of it, with the rest being chopped up and thrown back into the sea. At least scientists got to study it for a little while. Ancient Arrowhead. People often beachcomb to find something small to take home which reminds them of their vacation. That was what 10-year-old Noah Cordell was doing when he stumbled upon something remarkable. That being a 10,000-year-old Paleo-Indian arrow point. Native Americans used such arrows to spearfish and hunt mastodons, a prehistoric elephantine mammal. When Noah found and picked up the object, he figured he better show it to his family. His little sister was unimpressed, but his parents were excited. His mother, Andrea Cordell, immediately contacted Greg Latanzi, president of the Archaeological Society of New Jersey and assistant curator of the Archaeology and Ethnography Bureau of the New Jersey State Museum. When he heard about what happened, he was blown away. According to him, finding arrowheads like that is rare. Even the museum's collection was mostly unearthed by professionals at archaeological dig sites. Superstorm Sandy got partial credit for the find, though, because according to the Historic Preservation Office, the beach replenishment project helped scoop the arrow to shore. Still, what Noah had done was a massive achievement. You can tell his friends that he contributed to the museum's exhibits. Treasure chest. Nature has a way of paying you back for the services that you do for it. Just look at what happened to Jenny Fitzgerald. She traveled all the way to North Norfolk to take part in a beach clean when she made an unlikely discovery. While checking for litter between Cart Gap and Happisburg, Jenny spotted something behind a mound of sand. When she looked closer, it was an encrusted treasure chest, and it took her by surprise. From sea glass and shells, she now has something next level to take home. Jenny, who works as a medical secretary at the Norfolk and Norwich University Hospital, had to carry the loot 2 miles back to Sea Powling, where she lives. Once she arrived back, she and her 2 kids immediately started cleaning the sand away from the chest. Once that was done, they opened the container, which they found had about 100 coins from the Victorian era and George III's reign. Some even looked to date back to medieval and Roman times. Aside from that, there were gems, pocket watches, an old perfume bottle, a signet ring, and a silver matchstick holder. Hopefully she gets to keep at least a founder's fee for that. Prehistoric Fish. A man in Revere, Massachusetts came upon a troubling sight. There was a prehistoric fish on the beach, and just really how do you react to that? Well, after reporting the find, state officials have looked into the situation. Turns out the fish could either be a short-nosed or Atlantic sturgeon, both of which are endangered, with one being on the brink of extinction. The Atlantic sturgeons used to be abundant, however their populations greatly declined due to overfishing and habitat loss. This is because of the black gold rush that happened during the late 1800s. That's an event when people flocked to the eastern side of America in search of caviar riches brought about by the sturgeon fishery. In the case of the short-nosed sturgeon, according to the NOAA, the most significant threat to the species are the dams that block access to their spawning areas. Now they live with poor water quality and sometimes have to deal with water withdrawals from rivers. They also become unintended catches in some commercial fisheries. Doesn't help that this found sturgeon turns out to have been handled illegally. Poor fishy. Sea pork. So, someone found brain-like matter on the beach, and some even described it as a sand-choked alien organ or a small mammal turned inside out. Ew, gross. Either way, don't worry, it's none of the above. Otherwise, I probably would have included a disclaimer at the beginning of this entry. These blobs that people find on the beach, which kids sometimes call sea boogers, are actually sea pork. Sea pork is the common name for a tunicate, the ocean's most common yet complicated and somewhat freaky invertebrate. About 3,000 species of tunicates today spend their days filtering small food particles from their surroundings by pumping water and squirting it back out. It does make you wonder why we don't just call them the more logical name of sea squirt, am I right? Well, someone with naming power, probably a scientist or something, thought it looked like slabs of pig fat, and honestly, I really can't argue with that, though. The thing is, these things come in different shapes, colors, and even textures. So, they can just be different every time you look at them. At least we didn't name them in a more gruesome way. Fossilized Footprints. About 100,000 years ago, an extended family of 36 Neanderthals had a vacation and walked along the beach, with the kids jumping and playing in the sand along the way. This is what scientists report after analyzing the fossilized footprints found on the beach in the southern Spain. It was discovered in June 2020 by two biologists at the Madagascanas beach in Doñana National Park after a period of storms and high tides. At first, the biologists thought they merely found fossilized animal tracks. It was only after the prints were analyzed that anyone realized that in those tracks were some Neanderthal footprints as well. This later led to a search that identified 87 more Neanderthal footprints on the sedimentary rock. According to experts, the exposed surface dates back to roughly 106,000 years ago, made by hunter-gatherers living in Europe and the Middle East between 400,000 and 40,000 years ago. Researchers believe these tracks could even be the oldest Neanderthal footprints found in Europe. What made these fossilized footprints especially important is that, unlike bones and other artifacts, these footprints show us certain frozen moments of their existence. I agree, pretty cool actually. Now it's time for the day's best pick. And express some caution, we may be sharing the world with a cryptid. Altamaha-ha. Something made the rounds of the internet a couple years back. It was rumored that the dead mysterious sea creature was the legendary cryptid Altamaha-ha. The Altamaha-ha is described to have a sturgeon-like body with front flippers but no back limbs. It's said to swim like a dolphin or porpoise while having the snout of a crocodile. The coloring itself is said to be gray with a light-yellow underbelly. Based on visuals alone, this thing doesn't seem to be it. Really, the only thing that it has going for it is that it was found at Georgia Beach, the state that's said to be its home. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. What does Georgia Department of Natural Resources officials have to say about this? Well, after creating a high-resolution image of the sea creature, they concluded that it was all a hoax. They said that the key indicators were the creature's tail is stiff and upright, appearing to have been created by papier-mâché, and that the organs appear to be that of a fish's placed next to the object. And the most glaring of all, there's real no close-ups of this creature. Myth busted, I guess. Rocket debris. Remember when SpaceX's rocket exploded? Many news agencies report rocket parts being washed ashore on their country's beaches. There's even an article about it reaching the Sea of Sicily. But let's focus on the debris found on a North Carolina beach SpaceX even confirmed was theirs through an email with Mike Barber of the National Park Service. Officials said a large piece of sheet metal washed up on the outer banks. Janelle Turner of Ocracoke, North Carolina found the debris along with two other people about 40 feet from the shore. According to her, the metal was weighty and it took the strength of all three of them to turn it over. After examining the sheet themselves, they reported the find to authorities. The National Park Service went to the site a couple of days later to remove the debris, and according to them, it may have been pushed by the land by Hurricane Florence. Officials say that it had been the second time that year since parts of the SpaceX rockets washed up on shore, and I'm almost sure they contacted the company to clean up their hardware. Whether they did or not, I don't know. Secret Nazi bunkers. Never thought something as big as this could have stayed secret for such a long time. Researchers uncovered secret Nazi bunkers in Normandy used against American soldiers at the D-Day landings during World War II. Josh Gates, host and executive producer of Expedition Unknown, said the bunkers hadn't seen the light of day in 75 years. He also shared that they found artifacts inside, which he didn't really expound on. According to Gates, there are two large bunkers, each with 3 to 4 large rooms. These bunkers are part of the Macy Battery, a complex about 2 miles inland from Omaha Beach. When it was in use, the battery had 14 massive guns, some of which were 150mm howitzers. Using light detection and ranging technology, researchers found evidence on the bunker's ceiling that indicated it was burned, likely during a firefight to capture the site. On one hand, this excited researchers because they're learning more about a darker time in history. On the other, it's also a painful experience, knowing what soldiers had to go through. At least in the end, the discovery was fruitful. Human remains. 2 years ago, a TikTok scared West Seattle. Teenagers found human remains on a beach after following the Randonautica app, which randomly sent them to the location. At first, the group joked around, saying perhaps the case contents were loads of cash. Unfortunately, upon opening it, they were met with a foul stench from something wrapped in black garbage bags. Thankfully, instead of prodding it, the teens opted to call 911, afraid what they had just discovered was a crime scene. And lo and behold, they were right. When the police arrived, they checked the suitcase's contents, and inside were the body parts of Jessica Lewis and her boyfriend Austin Wenner, who were never reported missing. After further investigation, a second bag was later found in the water. It's believed the bodies were there for several days before they were discovered. Months after the incident, police found and arrested the murderer. He had been identified as 62-year-old Michael Dudley, the victim's own landlord, who flew into a rage after a dispute with the couple over money. The only silver lining to this case is that detectives at least don't believe the murders are connected to other investigations around the area, and Michael is firmly behind bars. Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and you will get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it really works. Ancient shipwreck. Thanks to erosion, archaeologists report that a shipwreck was discovered on a Florida beach that might be as much as 200 years old. Local Mark O'Donoghue was walking on Crescent Beach in St. Johns County when he saw some timber and metal spikes sticking out of the sand. Immediately, O'Donoghue reached out to the St. Augustine Lighthouse Archaeological Maritime Program, which sent researchers to investigate the odd sighting. After assessing the site, the team determined that O'Donoghue had stumbled onto a wreckage of a ship that likely ran aground on Florida's coast during the 19th century. Chuck Mead, an archaeologist, speculates that the storm pushed the shipwreck far up on a beach, where sand formed around it. Based on its structure and materials, Mead says the vessel was likely a merchant ship from the 1800s, though a substantial amount of the structure is still beneath the sand for anyone to see. On the LAMP Facebook page, the researchers state they will continue to study the wreck both on-site and in the lab to uncover more information about its origins. Kinda makes you wonder what else they're gonna find. See you all next time!